The following episode of the Comics and Crypto podcast is for informational purposes only, and anything expressed by the hosts or their guests is solely their opinion. This podcast does not constitute financial advice, and anyone wishing to invest should seek their own independent financial or professional help. Have fun and enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Sean O'Hare, and I know comics.
Hi, I'm Spencer Vogel, and I know crypto.
Hi, I'm Kevin Lee Loader, and I don't know shit. This is the Comics and Crypto podcast.
Comics and crypto, crypto and comics, collector's world in a digital age. Comics and crypto, crypto and comics, it's where the next billionaires will be rich. Comics and crypto.
Today we have a very special guest on the podcast. He's the former CEO of Heavy Metal Comics, head writer for the Web3 game Star Atlas, CEO of Hero Projects, and an all-around stellar human. Please welcome Matthew Medley.
Matthew, hey.
Hey, what's going on, Matt?
What's up, Sean, Spencer? How you guys doing?
Doing
Good.
great. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I love the synchronized backgrounds over there. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah, we try to keep it professional on brand, you know.
I love it.
Do you consider yourself a collector? And if so, what do you collect?
I'm definitely a little bit of a collector, and to give a quick little background myself, so people know, my name's Matt Medney. I'm an author, science fiction. I write for a video game named Star Atlas. I also publish a couple of books. I own a few other companies in the creative field. I've written comic books for Shaggy and Chance the Rapper and Floyd Mayweather and a bunch of, interesting hip hop guys who, fun fact, a lot of hip hop guys love science fiction, horror, fantasy. It's like their jam, just pretty rad. But for me, collecting, I'm a big fan of, older statue toys. So like I have like a Swamp Thing from the Lagoon that's like a 1950s version. That's pretty it's like sticky because like the plastic is like just decomposed a little, which is pretty amazing. And then a handful of like OG pop toys. I got one of Luke Skywalker and some of the I forget what they're called, but the winter buffaloes from Empire Strikes Back, which is pretty cool. And I love to collect old comics. I got like Flash #7, Captain America #15, and stuff like that.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned like hip hop artists and rappers, because we were on a Twitter space probably close to a year now at this point with Tech9, and he's super into.
I love Tech9.
Yeah. I don't know if you got a chance to hang out with him, but he's super into horror and comics and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I haven't spent that much time with Tech9, but I've spent a pretty decent amount of time with Daryl from Run DMC.
Oh wow, cool.
Daryl, has rebranded DMC for himself as Daryl Makes Comics, and he's at
cool
Comic Cons now as DMC Daryl Makes Comics, and he has his own line of shit, and it's pretty rad.
Idea. Is he just like in Artist Alley doing stuff, or
he's in Artist Alley and just like vibing? It's pretty tight.
Definitely have to look out for that. Yeah, we're at most of the cons, so yeah.
Oh, sick.
Very cool that you collect older comics. We're a big fan of Silver Age comics ourselves. And we've been collecting a lot of them on we've been collecting a lot of them on VEVE, the Marvel licensed ones dropping on VEVE. I'd love to dive in that a little bit, your background in the comic space.
Yeah, I mean, I spent 3 years as the CEO of Heavy Metal. I recently stepped down to pursue more of my focus in creative and the books that I'm writing and all that stuff, and I have a deep admiration for the brand and for what it's meant to the comics in the genre space for the last 50 years. But it is an interesting medium, the digital, the crypto, the Web3, and how that is merging or trying to merge is probably a better word with comics. And I think that there's actually, a really interesting future. I've always been a big believer that the biggest reason that digital comicsology-esque never really took off in the way that we all thought it could is because the ownership issue, right?
Yeah.
Because owning comics is really a twofold equation. There's two 50% pies. There's the pie of enjoying the content, which I think digital or physical, it's a 50. If it's good content, you're going to get all 50 of those points. But the other half of the equation is the collectability, the rareability, and the ability to turn that comic into an asset, right? And that asset is what makes Silver Age comics so interesting. And without blockchain technology and without the progression digitally of quantity and ownership, you sort of lose all 50 of those points, which is where I see Comixology and other platforms have tried to do it like a made fire sort of fall short. What VEVE is doing is a really interesting step into the right direction, where I think that the ability to have digital ownership of a limited quantity of comics creates that same asset value that you had with a old physical book that, you know, half the stock got burned and God knows what, and you found this one copy, and now that's valuable. Now that's more possible than it used to be. And for me, that is that other side of the lever that needs to really be conceptualized and realized for digital to really take control for comics.
Yeah.
So have you collected any of this stuff on VEVE or like on DC Comics and their NFTs?
I've done a little bit on the DC. I've done a little bit on the DC Comics. I have not touched VEVE yet, not for any reason other than I just haven't done it yet. But I've done a fair amount of stuff with DC, and I really love the physical to digital bridge, where like there's actually like a card for a lot of things that actually bring you to the page to then purchase the NFT version of that item, so you actually have this physical and this digital asset value. That is probably more of the future, the bridging of the two rather than the isolation of one or the other.
Yeah. Totally agree. Yeah, we're huge proponents on bridging, the digital and physical. Like one of the things that we've been huge fans of are the Funkos that have been dropping on the Wax blockchain.
Those are really interesting.
We've been buying a bunch of those, and being able to get the digital and then get the physical counterpart for it. It's such a cool model, and it even like enforces scarcity in the physical world too, because based on the scarcity of the NFTs, how many there are. And like normally like Funkos, you have no idea how many they're making. It could be 50,000, it could be 100,000. You have no clue.
Yeah, and that's why it's so special on Wax, because you get actually a total edition number for the Grails.
Totally.
There's 999 typically is the number. Some are even scarcer at 666, which is incredible. I know that even the Hot Wheels, Spencer, that's even less. I think there's only like 250 of those, somewhere around there. It's incredible, but that's awesome that you have a number now. You have an actual reference to how many total editions there are. That's special.
And when these numbers start getting into super low quantities, which makes it a long-term play for the brand rather than a short-term cash cow, that's when it gets really interesting, right? Because of course you're not going to make a killing on 250 items, but you're going to create a brand ethos from that, which I think is really interesting. It's probably why the Porsche NFT collection fell on its face this past week, is because they really, I mean, a $100,000 car minimum, trying to mint, what was it, 10,000 NFTs
at almost 1 ETH in this market. Like it's who's running that department and thinking that that's going to work? Right, like that. It should, if you're gonna price it at that, if you're saying we're Porsche, we can't price it lower than that, I get that. Then it should be 200, 500 tops, and you can slow drip a community from there. But like the idea that you're going to sell, basically 1 ETH worth of 10,000 of these things today is a little tone deaf. And I think, the other part that I see, I've been a big believer for a while that it's a little silly that we call them NFTs. That's like calling a song on iTunes an MP3. Hey, did you listen to that MP3 today? Right. It's like the technology vehicle rather than the customer facing protocol, which is just like very odd. And Web3 collectible, digital collectible, but the idea that the NFT contract can be your certificate of authenticity for a physical item as well. That's where I see a lot of real value, because why if I buy a Rolex, right? I get a physical piece of paper that tells me that this Rolex is valuable. If I lose that piece of paper, that Rolex is significantly less valuable just because of that piece of paper. And like that can scale, up and down the chain. And if you can do that certificate on the blockchain, a deed to a car, your email, like I believe the technology is just going to be embedded in all things that we do digitally, because it's just a proof of stake, right? The idea that we can own something digitally is possible because of the technology, not because the technology is the ownership.
right? And I think that nuance is something that is starting to be proliferated in the ecosphere, and I think that when that starts to be fully adopted and comprehended and understood, that's when we're going to see real explosion.
Oh yeah. And I think like especially some of the really cool things I've been seeing, like Artifact Studios, they've been doing some really interesting stuff with like NFC chips, where you can actually link, your NFT to the specific, physical good that you have. And I think that just, takes that proof, like basically the certificate of authenticity, to the next level, and then it
100%.
allows you to enable, really cool, interesting things like I know like the recent sneakers they dropped, they're doing like move to earn and interesting things
That's
like that.
huge.
Like, so there's just there's so many like added utilities that you can add to these things, on top of it, besides it just being that certificate of authenticity.
Totally, and I think that's like in gaming, I see the value in I was having this conversation earlier today with a buddy that the real value in a new commerce vertical, a new business line, is not the grand slams. If people are only selling Beeple level NFTs, it's not going to be a business. It's a couple of things. The real business comes in the if Beeple's a 10 and a free NFT is a 1, business comes from people being able to buy something at a 2 and sell it at a 6. Yeah. Right. And if you're able to do that on a mass scale, now you have a business vertical. And I think in gaming specifically, the ability to buy an asset at a low level and then play that asset and turn that asset from a level 2 to a level 6 in a game, and buy it for $100 and sell it for $1,000. Now you've created a business vertical. Now you've taken somebody's enjoyment time and turned that into where they could actually just do that all day and make money from it. And that's like was the emergence of social media as like a real vertical, is because you created influence. You created a medium in which people could just do the thing that they really wanted to do all day and make money from it. And that's where I see the technology really interacting in this sort of new age transmedia world that we're like toggling between and trying to figure out how to really enter it as as an entertainment society, and it is really, really interesting to see that.
Renting too. That's what I'm really excited about in gaming, especially in gaming. Renting is going to be really big.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We have a friend who, shout out to Gank. He's a big well over at Splinterlands, and he's been renting out, his Splinterland cards for years and, been making a consistent monthly income on it. And
that's amazing.
Spectacularly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That yeah, the idea of renting is like crazy, right? Or like even wow, yeah, just like if you own something in the digital space and somebody else wants to use it is just crazy, right? That's just so cool, man. You can't do that physically because shipping, right? It just would cost too much money. So that is an interesting a new interesting vertical I actually didn't contemplate, that you'll now be able to share ownership of something with someone else, because the middle fat of that sharing is no longer a cost constraint.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And you don't need a middleman to do it. You can, have it all done on smart contracts, and it's done in a trustless way. And yeah, exactly.
That's super tight.
Yeah. And one of the things that we're looking at for renting is like more like kind of like metaverse for like metaverse parties or metaverse events, renting out like, unique paintings or unique collectibles, or, it's like, for example, one of the things that we own together as a podcast, we have a third co-host, Kevin, as well. And one of the things that we own.
Where's Kevin?
He's working. He's working on edits.
How dare you? How dare you?
Yeah. But one of the things we own, the three of us, it's the 1977 Luke Skywalker lightsaber through VEVE. And so, so we paid a pretty good premium to get that mint number, but that's something that, in the future, somebody might want to, have that specific collectible at a party, and somebody might rent it for, $250 for a night or whatever. And
including Lucasfilms.
Happy to do it. Yeah, exactly.
I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I got my Star Wars hat on here. So.
Hey, cool. I saw the Rebel sign right there, the logo. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm down to rent that lightsaber from you guys. Let's talk about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Star Atlas and the story you're trying to tell through the game?
Yeah, I mean, what's really great about Star Atlas is that, the team has this grand vision of what a space game, universe, metaverse, interactive play can be. And we're not compromising with that, which is just incredibly fun to be around. And something that I'm really passionate about is that, whether it's a video game, a movie, a book, or or a fireplace story. Everything should start with a story that you can tangibly hold, that you can feel, that you can touch, that you can see. And that's why we started with this comic series called Core that Tim McBurney is drawing and writing. I'm editing, I'm working on it with him. And we just released chapter 3. Chapter 4 comes out in 2 weeks, which is really fun. We released them as SFTs on Magic Eden with a special cover. We released them as SFTs on staratlas.com with its own cover. And then we have a free version of it on Apple Books, which we've been really blessed. Apple's been an amazing partner. Issue 1 debuted as the #1 free book for 6 weeks on Apple Books in the entire world, which is really amazing.
Yeah.
It was #1.
Does that bring in a lot of new eyes to the game?
A lot of new eyes to the game. And the only difference between the free version and the SFT version is that we have a site for scavenger hunt in the SFT versions that you can decipher, decode the riddles, and find prizes at the end. And if you want to do that and you're in the crypto space and you think that's really, really fun, amazing. And if you don't, and you just want to understand the story and learn about this new science fiction world that we're creating, then pop on Apple Books and grab it. And we start with this character named Ji-Young, who's just like I dare to say he's Han Solo E, just because he's like a pirate space guy, but he's really not. He's really this complex individual who fell in love with a robot species called an Ooster, and then something tragic happens, and now we follow his life and how that leads to a bunch of unfortunate circumstances that lead to then the gameplay that you'll get to play in Star Atlas as the game starts being released, because the comic book takes place about 80 to 100-ish years before the game. We thought it was really cool to sort of create this framework and the structure for people to have an entry point that they didn't need to have even watched the trailer. They don't need to have read any of the materials. This entry point will get them introduction to the species, to the world, to all of the things through this fun sort of pirate space saga.
That's awesome. I love the focus that you guys have on lore. I mean, that's so important in gaming. And I think that's something that's been lacking in a lot of these early Web3 games that have come out. So one of the things that I do outside of the podcast, I work for a company called Apollo Entertainment, and we're building a game called the Satoshiverse. And through the Satoshiverse, we've built up like 11 pages of lore or something like that on our website, and it kind of follows kind of the Bitcoin creation story, but we kind of have our own take on it, and we include like the pandemic, and it's like we're fighting against the defenders of fiat, or the bad guys, and so we have this whole lore that we're built in, and I think it just makes the game that much more interesting.
100%. I think it's mission critical to have a world that you can seep into, because the reason that people watch a movie, read a book, read a comic, play a video game is the immersion, right? It's not about escaping the reality they live in. It's about escaping to a reality that they've never been to, right? And I think that nuance, everyone has these weird thoughts on the word escapism, because what are you running away from? And I've always looked at it as no. If you've done your game or your movie right, people are escaping to something. They're not escaping from something. And it's really important to have the infrastructure of character depth and environments so that people have a reason to run towards the idea.
The graphics look absolutely incredible, and it's so exciting to see a pioneer like yourself create a game in Web3 like this, man. It's setting a standard. It's setting a standard, which is really exciting.
The economics team and the marketing team and the game design team, everyone, everyone is just on this mission and this vision of creating something that can change perspectives and perceptions. And that's what drew me to it. And I think our founders are doing an amazing job of focusing us on that goal. And we're able to have these really fun cross-section conversations where we're talking to econ, we're talking to game design, and lore is weaving into these things. And I'm talking to econ about understanding how they're thinking about the game mechanic economy, and then how can I take some of those ideas and turn them into motifs within the story, so that there's really these really fun infinity loops of story, lore, and actuality, because I think that's where you get magic, right? Is the ability to feel as if everything is continuity, and that continuity, I don't just mean from inside the game, I mean from the breaking of the fourth wall, right? Like if the thing that is not in the game feels like it's part of the game, and the thing that's in the game feels like it's not part of the game, and all of the aspects and all of the tentacles that you need to touch to engage with that game all feel cohesive in that way, now you're really in a different world. Now you're in a metaverse. And that's what we're trying to create with Star Atlas. And I think that we're doing a really, really great job. And I know the game demo got a lot of love, and people are loving the comic. So it has just been a ton of fun.
So how did you actually get into Web3? Like what was the inspiration, and how did that lead to Star Atlas and all the stuff you've been doing, since?
Yeah, I think it was a company called Curio that was doing some NFTs, reached out to me.
Curio cards, right? Curio cards, right?
Yes, Curio cards. Yeah. So they were doing some NFTs, and they reached out to me when I was at Heavy Metal to do some stuff, and we had done a couple activations that were really cool. And I was in late 20, early 21. I sort of got a good sense of what was happening. And then obviously Beeple's sale happened, and Beeple had done a cover for Heavy Metal back in 2017. So I was very familiar with what he was doing and all of that stuff. And I started getting really excited about just the digital ideas, because I'm a sci-fi writer, nerd, student of the genre, and I really believe that some form of the oasis is where we will live in, be it 20, 30, 50 years. So anytime that you can create the building blocks to something like that was really enticing. And I've never been on the bandwagon that I thought that like it was happening last year. Like, it is obviously a long road, like, just from a technology standpoint, if people understand how silicon works and the heat mechanisms that we need to get the real VR, AR augmentation, we're just not there from a physical computing point of view yet. But to build the building blocks and to like stress test the ideas is just such a cool thing to be a part of. And I met the Star Atlas guys soon after they had launched in 21, and our views and our theologies on the stuff just so meshed. And it was something I really wanted to be a part of and to help navigate and to put my touch on it. And it all made sense for all parties. And, I think, officially I started just about a year ago working on the game, and it's been a lot of fun.
I'd love to talk a little bit about the hero projects, create custom comic books for clients like Floyd Mayweather and Rolling Loud Music Festival and the band 311. Super cool. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, in for about 10 years or so, I was a tour and production manager in music. I, was an assistant TM with Knife Party, worked on a bunch of their shows. And then I led production and touring for Keizo and Cheat Codes, Pegboard Nerds, and a bunch of other of these like really awesome, fun acts in the dance music space. And, I always like to joke that touring is like a 5-to-1 on your life. So like, I might look 34, but I feel 84 inside. and I knew that for me, it wasn't going to last more than about 10 years, that I just did not have the stamina to be on the road for 20 years, for 30 years. So I tried to think about how I could, use the relationships that I built over that time and do something that was more in my heart, and storytelling and writing. And I always like to think that I was telling stories with the way that I design the pyrotechnics on stage. And I was always writing stuff behind the scenes on planes, etc. And one day I was like, I think we should just do this. And I had this idea that we could, work with some of these brands and friends that I had and create a comic book based on either a song, an IP, a person's likeness, and use that and animate it as a motion comic, and use that as a music video, as a trailer, use the comic book as merch at a show, take panels from it and make clothing. And my friends over at Insomniac Events, gave me sort of the first shot of this with a festival called Project Z, where we built out this entire comic universe with the Lavins and the Zeniths and the Zerks and all of these different alien races and how they battled each other. And then those became the stages for the music festival. And then we produced post festival movies that showed which stage won based on how crazy the show was. And we created this really transmedia experience for 4 years where we put out a comic, a trailer, you'd have the event, they would all be synced, and then you put out an after movie. And that was really fun. And that sort of was the birth of Hero Projects. And with a couple of my dear friends, a guy named Voodoo Bones, another guy named Morgan Rosenblum, another guy named Johnny Handler, we created Hero Projects where we, you know, just wanted to make cool content for these different brands and artists. And as you said, you know, Floyd Mayweather and Rolling Loud, we created a cereal bar because why not, when you're at a hip hop music festival and you want to take a break from listening to music, do you not want to go drink some Rolling Loud O's or eat some Rolling Loud O's, watch some motion comics and read the companion comic book to the thing on the screen? So we built this installation. Yeah, it was so fun. But we did that for like 5 of their shows, which was just a huge success and really fun. And then we built out a comic universe for Imagine Music Festival out in Atlanta, which was really, really fun. And that story is amazing. Maddie and her partners over there are just a joy to work with. And we've been working on their festival now for about 3 years. And then we did Shaggy, which was just like dope to work with Shaggy.
That's awesome.
Shaggy's sick.
Yeah.
You know, Shaggy had a song with Nicky Jam and basically gave us a song and said, "Make me a superhero." And that was the direction. And that was just like wild to work with him. And then we worked with the, you know, some other stuff that's been really cool and fun is, you know, early in the pandemic, we had partnered with NYU Langhorne to actually put out a PSA in comic book form to sort of give a perspective that was easier for the youth to understand what was happening and to try to contextualize what was happening in their lives. Because, you know, anyone 15 and younger, it was like a shock to the system. So, you know, we worked with their senior staff to create a product that we felt, you know, wasn't touching either aisle, but more just being informative and something that could, you know, hopefully give kids who might not have had answers but had questions a resource that was in a language that more made sense to them, which was really, really great to do. And then we worked with the Japanese government on a couple of really cool projects. One, they were doing this this old ritual dance show, and we actually created a comic book prelude that was the flyer that you get when you got to the event, so that you can have this sort of manga anime comic that would then give you the background understanding to the 45-minute show you were about to see. So we've had some really fun stuff. I mean, just recently we did one of the coolest things we did, and it just came out, I think in December. We worked on it for like a year and a half. Is we did a 6-minute mini movie for the musician Kid, K?D, where we did he put out an album, and we did 6 30-second clips that then came together in about a 5.5-minute movie that told the story of his album in a full manga anime, fully traditional animation, which was really, really fun. But yeah, so that's what we do at Hero, and I can talk about those things all day because it's just like, you know, taking the storytelling medium and using it for branding is something that I think is missing in a lot of things. I think a lot of people think of branding as branding, but I thought in today's day and age, storytelling and the visual art medium is the branding, and the way in which you curate that storytelling is going to influence the way you create a brand.
I love that you said that. I don't know if you know, for the past 15 years, I've been a producer out in the Bay Area, so do commercials and films, things like that. So I know the importance of storytelling through visual format. You know, it's important, and it's fun talking to a lot of tech clients who don't really understand that, and we try to treat their commercials like short films, because nobody likes to be sold anything. They want to just have a relatable story that they can connect to. Yeah. And if it's 100%, that's how it works.
If you're trying to sell something, you could have the best product in the world, and if you're selling it, it's never going to sell. You can have the worst product in the world. If you have the best ad, it will sell like wildfire.
100%. Like my favorite Corona commercials. They're not talking about the taste or the quality of the beer. It's just being in the moment and enjoying the moment that you're in. That's really what it comes down to. Yeah. It's so special and so relatable.
The Dos Equis commercials, the Budweiser commercials. These are the best. The
Yeah.
best ads
Yeah.
are the
Yeah.
ones where they just become cultural jokes, right?
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
you know, we live in this time where people are really tense, and I think it's harder for people to joke today than it ever has been. But if you can't make fun of yourself, then you're not going to be selling anything, because people want to know that you're not, you know, stuck up. Like, and if you're able to take a joke, and if you're able to laugh at yourself, it's the ultimate diffuser.
Yeah.
Right. The ultimate diffuser is laughing at yourself.
Old Spice,
Oh, yeah.
they crush it.
You can probably
Old Spice is the best.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
I'm a redhead, and with South Park,
Dude, do you not
I had to do a lot of the, you know, self-deprecating humor to make a buy in middle school.
I always said that I grew up in purgatory because I'm red hair here and black hair here.
That's awesome. I grew up in purgatory.
This has been such a fun discussion, but I think a great way to close this out is, you know, what do you think the future is going to look like for comic books and comic art in the Web3 space?
Yeah, I really hope the physical printed book doesn't die because of paper costs or supply chain or any of those issues that are mounting with a lot of people today, because I think that there is a amazing vertical for it. I actually think that the future is in drop print, drop ship books, where everything is sold as an NFT and you own it digitally. And then if you want the physical, there's a easy process to purchase that through your ownership portal of that book. It takes the weight of the printing and the shipping, the fulfillment off of the publisher, and it puts it on the person that actually wants it. And I just think that that's a smoother supply chain. In terms of the greater Web3 community for comics, I think that we're going to see more than ever storytelling in some medium, some form, some way be the impetus to all brands. That, like, you're actually not going to start a brand from a product. You're going to start the brand from the emotion that product will eventually invoke in the person.
I just got chills when you said that. Yeah.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like physical comic books are going to be around for a while. There's still such a lot
I
of
hope so.
there's a lot of purists out there still, and you know, just based on recent sales, you know, like House of Slaughter, 450,000 plus cover A's.
Amazing.
Berserker,
my boys over at Whatnot Publishing are slaying it. Every book's 100K. So yeah, I think that it's gonna stay around for a while. My hope, though, and the variable is, we haven't nailed the digital yet. So we don't know the other side of that. We don't know what happens to physical books when digital becomes the dominant vertical.
That's a very, very good point. And unlike video games, where we know that's coming. Physical video games are on their way out. Physical movies, DVDs, Blu-rays are done. Streaming, that's where it's at.
Collector's items. I actually think that physical games will be, it'll actually maybe be a comic book. Like, you might actually buy a really coolly wrapped comic of the video game with the slip pouch in it, so you have that physical as a collector's item, but inside of the inside cover is the QR code to download in the Epic Games Store or whatever, right? Like, me, that's probably where physical stuff comes in, is that it just becomes the collector's item for the digital use.
And when we were big collectors in the physical video games as well, and we believe in the grading system for video games. Have you followed that with WADA? And yeah, we've owned a few ourselves.
It's wild.
We've been stacking Last of Us. It's been a blast. But yeah, we're excited for the future market. VHS tapes as well. All these things are on the way out. Yeah.
I love it.
Well, thanks so much for coming on today, Matthew. This has been amazing. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, such a fun interview.
Appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a lot of fun. And, you know, I still don't believe you're not in the metaverse, but I'll let it slide for now.
Yeah, I think this was supposed to be mostly a Star Atlas interview, but we got into you're too interesting. You got too many other cool things going on. How do you have time to sleep?
I sleep a lot. That is the key. Eight to 9 hours a night. You just got to go when you're up. But no, honestly, the Star Atlas stuff is the best. Just to sort of wrap there, it is a vision of the future. I'm really excited to be working on it. if anybody hasn't read the comic yet and you don't want to buy the SFT and you don't want to buy crypto yet, but you're really interested in comics, just grab it on Apple Books, give it a read. There's 3 issues out now. Issue 4 comes out, I believe it's February 8th. Nice. You can find me at Matthew Medley on all social media, Star Atlas at Star Atlas. And yeah, I mean, I'm really bullish on the things that we're building over there. So yeah, again, I really appreciate you guys having me on and just like having fun talking about a variety of things.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And we'll make sure to include those links to the socials and websites down below, and look forward to having you on again soon.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, guys.